1. Now, people should start joining in here slowly throughout the lesson. But just to get us started, we like to keep these pretty timely because they are recorded and everybody receives them afterwards. So everybody will have access. My name, as always, is Rick Barcelos. I'm the brand and community manager here at Growth and the host of our micro lessons. And today, we have a really exciting one. I feel like I say that a lot, but this time is more than true.
I can confirm this is the most exciting one.
Oh, for 100% sure. This is the event about events.
Yeah, meta. This is the most meta content. We're doing a virtual event on how to do in-person events.
We just broke the matrix.
Well, yeah. I'm confused. Anyway.
Well, like I said, this is really exciting to have the Happily team here, Max Cohen with us. Max, the people are here to hear from you, not from me, so I'll let you take it from here and I'll jump back at the end for the Q&A.
Awesome, man. Sounds good. Hey, everybody. My name is Max. I am the chief evangelist, whatever that means, over here at Happily. If you're not familiar with Happily, we are a company that builds apps on HubSpot. We build a bunch of different apps. We've had little tiny apps, Associate, Clone Attack, TikTok today. Maybe you've heard of those. But now we're getting into, the bigger and brighter and more audacious territory of building these larger sort of big flagship apps that do a whole lot more on HubSpot. And today I'm going to be telling you about how to run an in-person event on HubSpot using our app, Event Happily. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen here since I know I got limited time and we want to dive right in and make sure we're providing some educational value and content right away. I'm going to try to bring up the chat just so I can see it. Okay, cool. I see Rick in there. We're going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know what Event Happily is, all right, Event Happily is an app that we built for HubSpot that quite literally turns HubSpot, which is a CRM system, okay, into an event management platform. All right. So the whole idea is that we looked at HubSpot. We figured out, hey, what are the most really painful parts about event management that are really, really hard to do with HubSpot out of the box? And we set out on a mission to fill all of those gaps and inject all of those features needed in order to be able to run events, be it in person or virtual through like Zoom or something like that, inside of HubSpot. All right. So we're thinking a lot about how are we tracking the act of planning an event that you're putting on, how we're thinking about how you do registration, right? So when people sign up for your actual event, how you track that. We're also thinking very heavily around how do you accurately measure attendance to the event, right? You put all this time and effort into getting people to sign up for your event and they go to it. And do you even know if they go, right? Because that's all really valuable data that you might want to use inside of HubSpot. And then we also thought long and hard around, what are different types of events that people do? Sometimes people don't host events. Sometimes they even attend events and they capture leads. I don't know if you saw us at the booth at Inbound. We were using Event Happily there. Right. And then we started also thinking about what are the other things in HubSpot that it ties into, and sales is a big one, right? So we built features to help you, do things like associate your deal revenue back to your events so you can get an idea of how well your deals are having an impact on your sales bottom line, things like that. Right. But today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you the basics, okay, of how to run an in-person event in HubSpot and what that actually looks like and all the different mechanisms that we pop into your HubSpot account to make that happen. So come with me on this journey. All right. I'm watching the chat. If anyone has any questions, I know Rick will probably kind of keep those towards the end, but I'll keep an eye on it. And if it's something that's relevant as I'm going through it all, I will show it to you. So let's dive into it, shall we? Okay. So getting started, and I'll zoom my screen in a little bit just so everyone can see everything. I have these massive 27-inch displays that sometimes don't look that great on a little tiny webinar screen. But if you can see it, let me know in the chat. All right, cool. Let's lay down a scenario. Okay. The scenario is we have an in-person event coming up, right? And we have to do a couple of different things. One, we have to have a place to manage the event and plan the event, give ourselves tasks to complete, different things we need to do. Maybe we want to track expenses or whatever that may be. We need a representation of this upcoming event itself. Okay. Then what we need is we need a way for people to sign up for the event. So actually register for the event. And then when people actually register and the event comes along, we need a way to track attendance, right? See if people actually went to this thing. So we can get all this rich data into HubSpot about this big event that we did, and then use that data for all the things that HubSpot is actually good at doing. All right. So we'll start here. Okay. Now, little lay of the land, just so everyone's familiar with some of the verbiage I'm going to be using here. Okay. Is when you install Event Happily, there are thrice custom objects that we install when you install the app. Right? You install the app, we install some objects. All right. Happens all automatically. Don't worry about this. There's 3. Okay. There's events. These are representations of the event itself. So think like inbound is an event. There are sessions, which some of you might use, some of you might not. Right. But think of sessions as like other parts of your event, right? That people can choose to register for. You might want to track the attendance, on a particular session, right? Some might be optional, some might be required, right? Depending on how your event is set up. So again, inbound is the event, and then think of like the keynote speech, the product spotlight, right? Those would be sessions, okay? Now, you don't have to use sessions if you don't want to, right? But if your events are more complex, you can. For the sake of ease today, I'm going to skip sessions. Okay. I'm just going to use events because 99% of the time, you just got one thing that people are signing up for, and it's pretty simple, pretty cut and dry. Right. But we can handle more complex use cases, unlike the marketing events object. Anyway, there's neither here nor there. We're going to move on and talk about registrants. Okay. The registrant object. All right. This represents an instance of somebody registering for and attending an event and that entire experience that they had. Okay. This object is probably one of the most like pivotal objects inside of Event Happily, because registrant data, right? Rich data about that time Max went to inbound, right? Is some of the most important data you can use, not only for reporting, but also crafting the experience that you give someone at the actual event, right? It's also a great way to track feedback about the event. Okay. That's going a little bit more into the weeds, but the reason we have this sort of like junction object between contacts and the events that they go to and the sessions that they sign up for is because when it comes to a lot of the different apps out there in HubSpot or in HubSpot land, or the different like point solutions for event stuff, right? It's missing this crucial sort of memorialization and representation of the data of that time someone went to a certain event, right? Think about it. Every single time you go to a different event, there's different information about that time you went to the event. Maybe your t-shirt size changed. Maybe your dietary restrictions have evolved or evolved, whatever, right? They change. Maybe you have a different ticket type. Maybe your badge number is different. Every single time someone goes to an event, there's different stuff about that event. And unfortunately, most of the event management tools out there that pipe data into HubSpot shoot it all into contact properties, and it just overwrites and overwrites and overwrites every single time someone registers or attends an event. The registrant object gives us the ability or a place to memorialize that data so it lives forever, and you can continue to use it for reporting, automation, segmentation, all that kind of fun stuff. All right. So we're going to start at the events object. Okay. We know we're going to do this event. The event's coming up. I need to first just create a representation of this event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to here to where it says create happily event. Right. And I'm going to use the sidebar here to just put in some basic information about my event. Right. So we'll go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call this Rick's birthday. Right. And then we're going to give it a description. This is a birthday party for Rick. Now, what's important about these descriptions is these will show up in some of the CMS modules that we give you out of the box. Event Happily 2.0, which is the build I'm showing you today, right, is going to come stock loaded, locked and loaded, ready to go with a full CMS theme that has everything you need to do, from event listings to check-in pages to event registration pages to these really funky, crazy session selection pages for dynamic registration, all these different things, right? The description is going to show up in there. Okay. We also have this thing called the event page body text. All right. This is going to show up on your landing page that you build in HubSpot, or your registration page, as we kind of more commonly refer to it. And this just gives you the ability to put like more of a deep description, right? And what's great about these is you can bold things out, you can italicize, you can change the font, you can do way more than just like a plain text description, right? Here, you can pop in a featured image, right? So just get a link to an image, throw it in here. It's going to show up on your cards. It'll show up on your landing pages, things like that. I do need to give it a start date and an end date, so I'm going to go ahead and do that here. I can also give it a registrant limit. Now, one of the biggest things that I heard from folks for a long time is they say, hey, how can we make sure people can't fill out a HubSpot form if it's been filled out X amount of times? And 100 out of 100 times that I've heard that, it's because someone's trying to do event management, event registration through a HubSpot form, right? There's no way to do this with native HubSpot forms until now. We have a really cool CMS module that will take a look at a session or an event that you're signing someone up for, and it will look at how many registrants there currently are, and if it meets or exceeds the registrant limit, it will not let someone fill that form out, and it will replace it with a rich text module that says, sorry, you missed your chance, or whatever you want it to say, right? So this is how we actually limit form signups and registrations to events inside of HubSpot. You can use it, you can skip it, totally up to you, right? Then we can put in some information about the venue. We can put in some information about street address, city, state, region, postal code, right? All things that you can skip if it's a virtual event, but it's an in-person event, so we'd put it in there. We also have a lot of standard properties out of the box that are, showing you things like event type, right? Now, this is really great if you want to be able to use this as filters on your listing modules, or you want to be able to automate different things when you build certain events, right? Same thing with event tag, event topic, just different ways to organize the events that you're doing, which is helpful, especially if you do a high volume of them. We also have this thing called a check-in pin, which I'm going to show you later what that actually is. This is for our QR code scanning and check-in when it comes to on-site attendance tracking. And then we have this thing called publish event, right? If we set this to yes, the event will show on our website. If we set it to no, we can keep working on it before we're ready to show it to the world, right? Cool. So we can go create that event. I'm actually just going to go to one that I already built right here and just kind of show you some of the stuff that we do. So at this point, all I've done is I've just built the event, right? Haven't done anything else. I haven't built any registration pages or landing pages, right? I could go do that if I want to, right? But to make things even easier, what we're doing here is our CMS modules that we give you leverage HubSpot's dynamic content tools, right? So what that means is if you have Content Hub Pro, okay, you can set up our CMS templates in a way that all you need to do is just create your event record like I just did. And out of thin air, you have a registration page, and you also have a check-in page to check people into the event, okay, that you can share with who's ever on site actually checking people in, however it may work, right? But all I've done is just built this record. And if I scroll down, actually, I don't even need to scroll down. I have it right here in this card because I'm organized and I customized this the way that, I wanted to be able to do it just so I can see all my assets super quickly, right? I am going to go into, let me come back to this one. I clicked the wrong one. There we go. I have our dynamic registration page here. And if I click this, it'll take me, I haven't really customized my theme much, so you're very much getting like a stock out of the box sort of landing page here, right? We're getting this HubSpot landing page already built for us. I didn't have to go build it for every single event. I can do it if I want to. If you want to create a bespoke, custom, special snowflake experience for every single one of your event registration pages, you can do that, right? But with Event Happily, it just kind of shows up out of the box, right? This theme is completely customizable. So if you want to add your logo, your colors, if you want to change around your fonts, whatever you want to do, right? You're able to do that. You can also use all of our modules in your own HubSpot themes that you have, right? But basically what happens is someone would then go to this page, you'd share it out via email, your social channels, whatever ways you kids are marketing these days, right? And when people came to this page, okay, they'd be able to fill out a form. Now, this is showing you our HubSpot module. Ignore all this text up here. This is some README help text that we automatically inject into the forms before you use them. But I haven't removed mine, so don't worry. Your forms won't have this big, ugly chunk of text unless you leave it there and you want people to see it. But probably delete it, right? But we have these really awesome HubSpot Forms modules that help tackle some of the bigger issues around how you actually deal with the nuances of event registration versus a regular HubSpot form out of the box, right? Most notably, these will actually let you do things like adding additional registrants, and it will actually load in additional HubSpot forms. So you can have someone not only register themselves for your event, but they can also register a friend. And it's not going to show up as two different, it's not going to show up as one single HubSpot contact that has been overwritten, right? These modules also do a lot more. I can show off some of that stuff right here. So if I come into here and I take a peek at this module right here, it can do a bunch, right? One, you can set them to be dynamic. So just like I did, as soon as you build the event, the registration page is already done. You can also build one-off landing pages and simply just select which event it's going to be for. You can then choose which form you want to use. So if you want to ask different questions on different events, it's as easy as swapping the form out, right? And then down here, you can add an additional form if you do want to allow additional registrations, right? And let someone sign their friend and other people up at the same time, right? You can also set it up to show the different sessions your event has, right? So if your event has multiple sessions, you can literally have the session show up in the form. You can select the sessions you want to go to. You can make it so they can only choose one, however you want to do it, right? We've literally built a registration engine into HubSpot. So whether it's through HubSpot Forms or through some of our different workflow actions, you could build some of the more simple or overly complex sort of like registration flows or processes that you want, right? And we give you a lot of different tools to do it in the way that you want to do it, right? And then on top of it, down here, when the maximum capacity is reached, you can either choose to show a custom message, right? So instead of loading the form, if it's full, it'll say, sorry, the event's full, go talk to somebody else, right? Or you can load in a separate HubSpot form to get someone to join a waitlist, right? So we have a lot of different things that we can do on HubSpot landing pages using these out-of-the-box modules or the theme itself, right? But let's say I signed up for the actual event. What is that going to look like? Well, if I come back into my event here, what will happen when someone registers for an event, okay? And I didn't even have to set up a workflow to do this, right? We have some magic happening in the background with webhooks and contact properties, and that form is putting stuff in here and there. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. I don't want to get into the nerdy details here, right? But when someone signs up for the event, okay, you will actually see a couple of things. One, on the event record, you will see contacts associated to the event. You will also see the registrant records for those contacts, okay? Now, again, the registrant records are going to hold information that's unique to that actual act of registration, right? What t-shirt size do they have? What dietary restrictions was it? What, type of track did they want to do in terms of what sessions? You can hold all this kind of stuff, right? But you might ask, hey, why? Why do you also associate the contacts to the events? Well, what's really neat about having the data structure set up in the way that we did with HubSpot is that you can build workflows around all those objects, right? So for example, if you wanted to build a workflow, for instance, I got a lot of junk in here, but if you wanted to do like a registration confirmation workflow, right? That says, hey, as soon as a registration is created, go ahead and send an email with the QR code in it. You can do that, right? So for example, I got this email when I signed up for the event, right? This all works out of the box. This is a standard template that we have, right? And then what happens is when, I can't really do it because I can't show my thing on Riverside, right? But when you were to go and actually, I'm going to do this really fast if I can. When someone gets this email and they show up at the event and you want to be able to track their attendance, my camera button's not working. All you got to do is scan the QR code. I'm going to try to show this to you. And normally what you'd have to do the very first time is put that little pin code in that I showed you. Maybe you can see this on the on my little camera here, right? But what that did is that checked this person in for the event. Okay. Now, the way we actually see if someone is checked in or attended the actual event, right, is we're looking at association labels between the actual object of the registrant itself and the contact. So if I come back into the event, and I go to my in-person event here, right? What you'll notice is not only, I'm going to try to zoom like way in so you can see here, right? Not only does it show that they're registered for the event, but they're actually attended the event. And all I had to do was scan the QR code that was sent to them via email, right? Now they can't scan that thing themselves before the event because we have this check-in pin thing that we have that only the people checking in know the pin. They put the pin in the first time, it cookies their browser, and then they can just scan away, right? But someone can't like accidentally scan the QR code on their own, right? But this actually helps us track the attendance, right? You'll also notice though, let me zoom out here, that we add these labels as well to the contacts, right? Now, why is it important that we have these same labels between the contacts and the registrants? Well, again, going back to my example here, let me come back to my workflow, right? You can build workflows around any of the objects that we have. So we have our events, we have our registrants, we have our sessions, okay? You got to remember when you use workflows to send emails to people automatically, right? You can only send it to contacts associated to that object, right? So event-based workflows are really great. If you want to create like a standard workflow for all the events that you do, let's say you do a high volume of webinars or a high volume of in-person events or whatever it may be, you can set up one workflow that sends one email that just pulls information about the event into it and sends it to all the contacts associated to the event targeted by those labels, right? So you can make it really easy to say, hey, one day after the end date of the event, send this email to any contacts who are registered, or send the email only to people who are attended, right? So it makes it really, really easy for you to use all these different parts of the data structure that we create to use HubSpot in a way that's really difficult to do if all you're dealing with is contacts and contact properties, right? You know, there's use cases for every single one of these objects to build their own automation around, right? So you can really, really customize the way it works, right? Speaking of that, we do also have a number of different workflow actions that we inject into HubSpot, right? So if I come into here, I'm going to go to Event Happily just to kind of tell you some of them here. One, this register for event workflow. This is like if you just already have like a HubSpot form going, you don't want to use like the CMS module thing that we have, or maybe you have some other event platform pushing in contacts that have registered for some event that you have, and you want to be able to, represent that data inside of HubSpot the way Event Happily does, and it's nice and structured, right? You can literally come into here, choose an event that you've created, right? So here are the events that I've built, right? And you could even choose specific sessions. So you could like branch people down to different tracks that they have, whatever it may be, right? On top of that, you can also update registrations. So you choose a specific event, and then you can choose whether they're marked as attended, they did not attend, they canceled, right? If you're not using any of the other stuff that we give you to actually track an in-person event. Speaking of that, we also have in-person check-in pages and modules that will literally help you look at a list of people that are registered for an event. So just imagine I have this on like my iPad or whatever it may be, and I'm checking people in for the event. And as they walk up, I go, oh, are you on the list? Yes, cool. I hit check-in, and inside of HubSpot, they're magically marked as checked in. It is the coolest app I think I've ever seen built on HubSpot, especially if you're a team that does event management, right? And what's crazy is this is only the beginning, okay? It's super, super easy right now to build a in-person event, be able to automatically have all the assets that you need by using our CMS modules, customize the way your registration needs to work using a combination of our workflows or just in the way that you set up your different sessions, things like that, and then easily be able to attract attendance however you want to, right? You can do it through QR code scanning. You can send those via HubSpot emails. You can track those. You can use the in-person check-in module. There's a lot of different ways. We're also going to be building like a whole app around this. We're going to build a mobile app in the future. There are tons and tons and tons of different, UI extensions that we want to build as well. But guys, we're in an age right now where it is super, super easy to spin up an in-person event out of thin air and already have a way for people to register and have a super easy automatic way to be able to track the attendance. So you get all that data in HubSpot in a super rich way that's easy for you to use, right? The big reason that other event apps aren't that great is that they give you a minimal amount of data and then they overwrite it over and over and over again, or stuff it into a marketing events object, which is really, really hard to use, right? And not flexible like a full custom object is, right? And what people want is just the ability to get that rich information into their event about registration, about attendance, so they can then use that data for all the things that HubSpot's really good at, right? Sales enablement, marketing, nurturing, customer success, all that kind of stuff. Events touch all of those things, right? And HubSpot just ends up being such a natural place to be able to manage it, right? When the data makes sense and when the right automation is behind it in the background to handle the really complex parts of like registration and stuff like that. So that's how easy it is. I blacked out a little bit there talking about how excited I am for the new app, but I'm going to try to take a look at the chat. Rick, you want to come back on and we can kind of tackle the chat together?
I am back on, and yes,
Awesome.
we can do it. Awesome stuff, though, Max. Great. Thank you for covering all of that.
Of course. You want me to keep my screen up while we're doing this just in case we got to like show people stuff?
I think so, yeah. I think that'll be a good flow. So we got quite a few questions here from Heather in the chat. We have a few that were sent in ahead, but we always prioritize you guys that come here to the lessons. So just to get us started, Heather said, I love how this is tied into HubSpot, but my biggest fear or unknown is what it will take to shift from systems and tools that she has in place now to this setup. She mentioned that she produces in-person and hybrid and virtual events, so she's curious to see these scenarios.
Yeah.
And now the actual questions are, first of all, does this integrate with Wild Apricot?
I've never heard of Wild Apricot before, but if the question is, do you have an official integration with Wild Apricot? The answer is no. That's a different conversation of, does Wild Apricot have a less than desirable integration with HubSpot? If the answer is yes, and it's doing the bare minimum of at least pushing contacts into HubSpot saying, hey, this person signed up for this event. If you can see that, you can use those as triggers that will use our workflows to then accomplish the same exact thing you're seeing in here, right? So I can give you an example. Actually, I did this with Eventbrite, but if Wild Apricot, and I gotta look into them a little bit. If Wild Apricot can do the same thing, right, then yes, I mean, it's not technically an Event Happily integration. It's literally just the beauty of why it's so great doing this on HubSpot, because we're using HubSpot as like the ultimate translator here, right? So for example, we don't have an integration with Eventbrite, but Eventbrite has an integration with HubSpot, right? And so what we can do here is we can trigger a workflow that says when the Eventbrite, this is like, so last registered event is like one of the two properties that Eventbrite, injects into HubSpot, right? And like, as bad as all of the other like, event management tools integrations with HubSpot are, they at least do this, right? So for example, what we can do is we can say, hey, every time this last registered event thing is known, right, trigger this workflow, contact goes into the workflow, and then we can say, okay, based on whatever that event was, in our case, it was Palooza. What I'm doing here is I'm just building a workflow that I deleted the event, so it's not here anymore, right? But I can basically say, hey, go ahead and sign them up for this one, right? Done. So then what happens is they register on the other platform, they get pushed into HubSpot, the workflow triggers, it hits our workflow action, and we go, oh, this person registered for this event. Go do all the awesome stuff Event Happily does, right? And then we can go into there and then like we can check them in, do their attendance, all that kind of stuff, and just take it out of Wild Apricot, right? Now, there are some situations where some of these point solutions like event management platforms have like wildly complex industry specific, super crazy ways of like doing registration that like HubSpot's just not really that great at. And even though we inject a ton of stuff in there to make it better at it, sometimes you still might just want to run registration through this other platform that you already have. Maybe you have some like complex paid registration, right? And you don't want to use HubSpot payments, right? We have some methods of doing it with HubSpot payments that work really well. You can literally still use that other system just to do your registrations, do your payments if you're happy with all that kind of stuff. But the big problem you're trying to solve is the data structure in HubSpot, which is the most important thing, right? And use our stuff to basically pick up where that integration leaves off in HubSpot, which is usually just, here's a contact and that's it. And then we can kind of take over after. So I hope that helps. So how to migrate? Yeah. Growth is like one of our best partners when it comes to doing migrations and implementations of Event Happily. So definitely talk to those guys. But yeah, we have onboarding that we do. We work with awesome partners like these folks to be able to do it as well, to do things farther out of scope than what our standard onboarding does, right? But again, the beautiful thing is like we're leaning on HubSpot's customization to let you build the event management platform of your dreams and not be locked into the way some third-party app works. So, yeah. Kayla, you had a question here. General advice question for you. In terms of scalability, what are some of the recommended nomenclatures or campaign naming templates to use and stay consistent when creating new event campaigns after new event campaigns? So what I would actually do, I'm thinking less about like naming conventions, and I'm thinking a lot more about like some of the standard properties that we drop in to let you do, to let you organize your stuff, right? So in 2.0 here, I have so many guys, I have so many test accounts. So I'm literally all over the place. Give me 1 second here. Here we go. Here's one. So if I were to go look at our events, what you might have noticed is when we created an event, we have these standard properties of event type, event tag, event topic, right? Especially something like tag, which is a little bit more ambiguous, right? But you combine that with things like types and topics. And also remember, guys, like these are custom objects in HubSpot. You can add whatever other properties you want on them. I would come up with some sort of organization system using things like tags, using things like topics, using things like event types, right? Versus just like, what sort of name am I putting in front of the event? Because you got to remember, any of our CMS assets are going to drag that name in, right? And show on like your website or something, right? So you leverage some of this stuff and create an organization system based on this, and use things like custom views and saved filters and stuff like that. And it'll make it much easier to be able to like handle a large volume of events, if that makes sense. Yeah. Is there a social media integration? No, but that's why we built it on HubSpot, because HubSpot has social media tools. That's the whole point, right? Like if you really think about what we did, is we looked at HubSpot and we said, what's really tough about the act of registering someone for an event and tracking their attendance? And we filled in those gaps and built a bunch of features around them, right? So you could then use the rest of HubSpot for what it's good for, which are things like social media, email, all that kind of stuff. Way more than that. Like I'm not giving HubSpot its flowers right now, right? But that's the whole point. Instead of having the crappy, system that just like comes as like an add-on in the event management tool that doesn't give you all the control over email, doesn't have those great social media tools. We took a tool that did, which is HubSpot, and then just built in all the missing event management stuff. And like, that's the kind of the plan. And then again, this is just the beginning. We've got a whole bunch of other stuff planned past here. Yeah. Sorry, Rick, I'm getting a little passionate.
I love it.
That's cool.
I love it. And I love all the questions. I think we're just crossing over the time a little bit.
Sure.
Just reminder, everybody here is going to get the full recording of the session. So if you joined in a little bit late, if you missed something, don't worry, you're going to get it to your email on Monday sharp. Mm-hmm. And if anybody has any more questions that come up or you want to explore happily, reach out either to Max or to us here at Growth. Like you said, we work with Happily. And so we'll be happy to give more information and help you guys get around.
Definitely talk to the guys at Growth. Also, if you're someone who's like, I just want a demo and I want to take a look at it right now and I can't wait. If you email joe@happily.com, Joe is the head of event sales here, and he's the one that can take you through, give you a full demo, give you his honest take on whether or not it's a good fit for you, depending on what you're trying to do, right? And so you can always reach out, just let him know, or just send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll get you hooked up with the right people and answer any questions that you have. We are here to help you, okay?
That's right. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming to another micro lesson. Max, thank you for the incredible lesson, my friends. Always great being here with you. And yeah, we'll catch you everybody on the next episode of the micro lessons.
Thanks for having me, Rick. Appreciate you. Bye, everybody.